Yeah, it's election day where the corruption just keeps rolling in.
Oh
You'd
my gosh.
think
What
that
have you gotten me into?
it was you last night. You said something about, well, as you were giving the instructions to the White Hats on how they can help protect the tally from these corrupt machines, and then you said, well, let's just check exactly who it is that holds the certificate authorities, the key certificate authorities for these different states. And so you started looking it up, and lo and behold, Mr. President, if you want to know the foreign meddling in our election, you're about to hear about it. Michael, would you tell Mr. Trump who it is that is the man in the middle that gets to receive all these vote tallies, run it through foreign countries, and then run it back to us?
Well, we put some people on that this morning, and the paper is literally still warm from the report that was just prepared. But I would say it is a woe man in the middle, not a man in the middle.
Yes, and I bet I can guess her name.
My jaw dropped when I saw this summary, which I assume Betsy is going to attach.
I'm sure.
Oh, gee. We looked at all 51 states, the secretaries of state, and their election system, or election server, just to look at the keys that they use, key authorities that they use. And it appears that there are only 5 states that don't use third-party keys. Everybody else uses a third-party certificate authority, which we've talked about previously. I don't know where to start with this scandalous information, but I'll start here. There's a company out of Great Britain called Komodo RSA. It's a British company. It has something like 10 different company names in London, and it was founded by a gentleman by the name of, I'm going to get this wrong, but Melih Abdullah Yoglu. And let me read you the states that house their certificate authorities with this person actually in the UK. Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Minnesota, Montana, New York, North Dakota, and Utah.
Unbelievable.
You can't make this up. 10 states are housing their PKI encryption keys overseas in the UK with a British guy who, as we have seen this pattern, formed a British company, handles all the keys from servers in Great Britain, and then set up an American company to flow all these contracts through. And that guy's either a brilliant salesman or somebody set him up.
So when the voting machine wants to send out the tally of the votes, it has to use an encryption key, these PKIs.
PKIs, 2 keys, a public and a private key.
And these companies in foreign countries can intercept that because they basically control the encryption key that allows that communication to happen, so they could intercept it, manipulate it, and no one would know. Is that correct?
That's correct. If they have the other key, they can open any message. Okay, so that's just for starters. Okay, it gets more interesting. There are 2 companies, and this really was the trigger for this line of inquiry when somebody brought up the issue of the Florida vote in Tallahassee, and there was some thinking that the Florida system was compromised. So we started looking at that and found that there is a company called Cloudflare, which is associated with a company called DigiCert. And in Florida and Hawaii, DigiCert Cloudflare houses those keys in Ireland.
We can trust those Irish. Come on now.
I'm a McKibben. I understand what you're saying, but I really have an issue with that. Anyway,
I can't trust
let's
the
move
Irish.
on.
I'm lying. I don't trust anybody, and I don't think anyone besides Americans should handle any
No,
of our votes.
none
Period.
of these should be going overseas. This is ridiculous. Okay, let's keep going. Now we get into the meat. 19 states use a company called DigiCert. And DigiCert is owned right now by Thoma Bravo. Does that name ring a bell to you?
Orlando Bravo. Yes,
Yeah.
I've seen some of his videos.
Hillary's encryption keys. The company is out of San Francisco, California, and the following states use this company, which is controlled directly by a close Clinton associate: Connecticut, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Ohio, Oregon, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, Washington, West Virginia, and Wisconsin.
Now that's in trust, isn't it?
No, DigiCert is Thoma Bravo. Thoma Bravo sold in trust in 2013 to a company that is owned by, are you ready for the drum roll, the co-author of the Patriot Act by the name of Michael Chertoff.
Oh,
the
yeah.
former director of Homeland Security in both the Bush and Obama administrations.
And Homeland Security, if people don't remember, that's the Nazi SS, and they're in control of elections during the Obama administration. They actually, somehow, the federal government was placed through Homeland Security in charge of elections. I think that should be illegal.
He controls Entrust, which is listed as the key authority in Colorado, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Dakota, and Wyoming. Now, that's a pretty small group in comparison to what Thoma Bravo holds, and it's very evident that after and by the way, he's SES too. He was 8 years SES in the process. So it's very apparent that he wanted in on this game and therefore formed a company, and they threw him these contracts. It's obvious from when you look at this data. Look at this spreadsheet and or draw your own conclusion. But that's the conclusion I've come to. So Michael Chertoff was added into this, and obviously he would have known about this whole digital key system that Hillary and the Clintons had set up and was being perfected during the Bush administration. And so that he's writing these companies off into retirement, I'm sure. So then we have another 5 states that are use a company called Global Sign, and that's Alabama, California, Iowa, Missouri, and New Jersey. And those keys are housed in Belgium.
Well, the European Union had to get their votes in.
Well, there you go. And then there are 2 states that use Microsoft for their keys, and of course, Microsoft is a large Clinton Foundation donor. And there are 2 states, Georgia and Mississippi, that use GoDaddy/Amazon, which is also a major Clinton Foundation donor. So it appears that, with the exception of 5 states for which we couldn't find any information that they used third-party keys, all of the rest of the companies are, in one way or another, compromising all of our digital keys for our election systems in all states except Alaska, Kansas, Nebraska, New Hampshire, and New Mexico.
This is so willy-nilly. It is so pathetic. It is so clearly not thought through. Why didn't they use the Federal Bridge Certification Authority or a hub where they could
They did. That's what these are.
Well, but they used ones that are outside of the country. Couldn't we have chosen one that was in America?
Those people are on the list. Those people are on that list. But the real issue here is who owns them. Mm-hmm. And secondly, they all seem to roll back up to Hillary Clinton, and they have no business putting servers outside of our country to handle our election systems. That's really the key.
Yes. Now, DigiCert, is it in America or because
Yes.
or
San Francisco.
Oh, San Francisco. Okay, and
Bravo.
okay, and the Entrust group that is working through Chernoff.
Michael Chernoff. It's also in San Francisco.
So this Entrust group doesn't go to Shanghai.
Well, there are two groups for the Florida and Hawaii systems that include Cloudflare, and also Ohio's includes Cloudflare. So the Ohio Cloudflare stays in this country. The Cloudflare for Florida and Hawaii goes to Ireland. So it's reasonable to assume there is some association with Baidu, and the ownership of Cloudflare is clearly deep state tech left.
And Baidu being, of course, Chinese.
Yes.
So essentially, not a single Secretary of State, oh, that's right, those are the ones who were supported by George Soros in this election. His largest donations went to Secretary of State positions. Isn't that interesting? So the Secretary of State in each state basically gets a choice on where they would like to have their crypto keys controlled from, and they end up, consciously or unconsciously, allowing foreign agents
right
to be middlemen, and in fact, if they wish to meddle, all that they want.
This is overwhelming proof of foreign interference.
And
overwhelming.
We thought that we couldn't get any more. Today
Yeah.
I voted on a Hart InterCivic. I voted on a Mitt Romney machine, and it was really nice to know that his son.
Did it give you a little spark or a jolt or anything?
It
special?
did. It did. I tried to run it, and then it kind of wigged out on me, and the lady had to come over and say, "Oh, don't touch
I
it.
think
Back off."
it probably reached out and grabbed you by the neck.
It probably would have liked to have shocked me to death, but unfortunately, it didn't get that opportunity. But just knowing that my vote is going to be tabulated by Mitt Romney's company and his son, Tag, who runs it, and that those Hart InterCivic fake voting machines are in 17 states makes me want to vomit. But
Well, in the Michigan election system keys are owned and run by Orlando Bravo directly,
good old Orlando. I mean,
which is DigiCert.
has anyone ever met Orlando? Does Orlando actually exist? He's kind of like Richard C. Walker. I mean, really?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him.
I mean, they exist. They do, but do they do anything, or they're just cardboard cutouts? I'm assuming. But what we see here,
clearly these people are all doing the bidding of the Homeland Security, FBI, NSA, CIA with these digital keys, and they've developed an approach that will allow them to internationalize. They're already halfway there with internationalizing all of our key structure. It's not too late to stop this, but they are on the path. It's clear.
well, the good thing is there's an emergency order out, executive order, that says that anyone who meddles in the election is going to get the full weight of the law brought down upon them. And we're in an age of no longer lawlessness ran by Obama and Hillary, but the rule of law ran by Sheriff Trump. And that alone, I think, is scaring the heck out of people. The fact that they could get caught. And now look at the grotesque thing that we could address next. Not only are these digital keys...
Can I stop you before we get off of this subject? One of the things that really has grated me today as this data came together is the fact that the sheer number of technical people that had to be involved in building this system is enormous, because we're talking about a lot of engineering to get this set up and to get this working so that it's stable as a program, as a system, hardware, software, firmware system. And what's really disturbing to me, and I want to speak directly to network engineers, the fact that you guys built this and nobody said anything is a condemnation of a whole class of engineer who doesn't have the morality to step up and say, this is wrong. You did it because it was interesting work. I get it. I get that. But it's now time for if you've got an ounce of morality left, that you guys step up and you tell us what you did here, because this is I can't even pick a word. Scandalous isn't good enough. It's grotesque that and this is compromising the lives of billions of people around the planet because you guys thought this was a cool thing to do. Give me a break.
Exactly. Those CIA rogue agents who helped Jimmy Carter and Lord Malik Brown set this up in Venezuela, you're telling us that you didn't know that OpTech was the device that was then going to control the politics of the world through elections? You darn well knew it was. And when you set up these digital certificates, these crypto handshakes, you knew full well that it was a tax. And then when you moved it outside of this country, you knew full well that you were working with globalists who had no interest in America. And what we're seeing here is it's so pervasive, and it's split up so that everybody gets a piece of the pie. It's not just one monopoly doing this. No,
I know what they did. I know what they did, Douglas. They couched it all as a anti-terrorism effort. I get it. They all bought that idea.
I bet
but
you're right.
If you really believe that idea, then I got some really cheap land in Florida to sell you.
And Michael,
I don't know all that.
Yeah, and Michael Chernoff was a key architect of the U.S. Patriot Act, which is not U.S. It's communist. It's Soviet. It's the worst thing. It's a fascism, and it's not for patriots at all. It's matter of fact, it takes patriots and makes them the enemy. You are an enemy. You are a war actor, unless otherwise identified according to the U.S. Patriot Act. And so when that was put into place, you're right. Robert Mueller and John Brennan, they were the ones who took over the FBI and the CIA, and they made certain that we only focused on terrorism. And so at this point, yes, there's going to be excuses on why they do these things. But when you look at it and you see who gets a piece of the pie, you get to see the way that the institutionalized evil actually happens. And we, unfortunately, keep discovering more and more of this. Even on the election day, we are still, you particularly and your researchers, are uncovering the proof that this election, as it is going on right now, is as corrupt as it can be. And in a few hours, when they send the tallies, the crypto keys...
Well, it's not too late for election network engineers who know what you're doing to step up and help protect our Constitution. It's not too late.
Absolutely. It's
you got to do it now.
It's just like our writ of mandamus. Yes, it got up to the third level clerk out of 6 levels, but what has happened is we've already gotten information that it did what we wanted it to do. It got the attention of the people at the top who are now going to meet with others who were part of this. And so it's moving on up the ladder, and it doesn't stop. It's cumulative. So the writ of mandamus sent to the Supreme Court, it's not going away. We're going to build upon that. And it then goes to another court, which will then carry it even further.
And don't forget, Mike Pence has a copy of it, and we're watching Mike Pence's actions on this too.
Homeland Security has a copy of it, and the Supreme Court.
The Solicitor General has a copy as well.
Yes. And so as this moves up, what happens is, it's like so many things that we've found out, when it's brought to light, if the people who were involved don't whistleblow, if they don't come forward with the truth, then they just show their own guilt and their own complicit participation in this evil. So it's the same thing.
Well, it would not take many network engineers telling us what's going on here to blow this wide open.
Well, Avid in ISIS Management and Leader Plus is going to tell us tonight that DeSantis should just go ahead and capitulate because they already had the news glyph showing that Gillum had won, and they had that prepared, and it was released on the news before the elections even really started today.
Whoops.
Oops. And it was, one of those really close elections, 48 to 49 or whatever, exactly as you say, so that they can just say, oh, we almost got it. It has to be a valid election. Look, it was so darn close. No, they chose those numbers, folks, before the election started, and those are the numbers they intend to replace in the tally. And that's what the networks that Michael is talking about can go out and help stop, because they already chose the very numbers, exactly as you said, so close that everyone will think they're real because look, oh my goodness, look at the counting that had to be done by those expert computers. So we have to trust the computers because the numbers are very, very detailed. No, they want DeSantis and everyone else to capitulate tonight when they put out the false news. Let's not forget that sometimes the next morning it's the opposite of what was reported, and that was before Avid and ISIS
that's
management.
Florida, right?
Yes.
Well, Florida's system is hopelessly compromised. So I don't trust any of these numbers that we're going to see tonight, based on what we've seen.
No, we can't trust them.
There's a lot of hands in this cookie jar.
Oh, yeah. And if it comes out bad, then we need to ask for a recount. And there need to be paper backup. And if there isn't paper backup, and if there isn't a paper ballot in each state, then we don't count your votes.
And you don't get to see
Simple as that. If you cannot comply with what we the people demand, which is a true, fair, accurate election where our votes actually count, then we need to change the system.
Well, that's all I've got for you today because this is bombshell. This is hard data right from the internet logs of these different secretaries of state.
We're going to get this out, as you know. Betsy will get it out on Truth News Headlines. We're going to get this audio out, and we just want to tell people, do not give up. Be poll watchers. Get out, vote. Make the tsunami, red tsunami, so big that even the corrupt Democratic nonsense that we're pointing out, and it's not just Democratic, but the corrupt nonsense in our elections is not going to stop.
Well, hopefully we've got some militiamen in the militia women in the group of network engineers that know what's going on here, and we'll start hearing about this.
Well,
I can't
thanks to
believe
you.
they're all compromised.
No, they're not. And remember, Trump won. So whatever happened last time in 2016 can happen now. We want to thank those people ahead of time. We want to thank you for your good efforts and your continuous bringing to light the evil of the swamp and putting the light exactly where it belongs, showing the ugly visage of the election meddling that has been going on in our country for a long time. So, Michael,
well, that
thank
can
you.
be fixed.
It can be fixed, and we've never given you anything that we told you about that we didn't tell you there's some hope that can correct it, and we can correct these. The digital keys can all be rearranged. The Federal Bridge Certificate Authority completely can be rearranged. The election can. There's simple ways to correct all of these things as soon as lawfulness comes to Washington, D.C. So